Achieving everything in a particular video game sounds like two things. Firstly, fun, hopefully, looking at used shitty games, but secondly, greatly time-consuming. And it might sound like I'm strictly talking about merely doing everything that constitutes a 100% score or a top rank or something like that, but I'm interested in what it means to actually assuredly, without fail, do and see everything possible in a game. I did Diablo 2 before and determined that achieving everything in that game ranged from no to fuck no. So when you present this topic with a game like Final Fantasy 1, a product that is over 30 years old and its original version is 144 kilobytes big, you might expect that the game is very easy to achieve everything in. But as it turns out, if we use the definition of accomplish everything, then you'll be waiting anxiously for Final Fantasy to be finally over instead. Firstly, as an introduction to how I conduct these videos, I will pick a game, in this case Final Fantasy 1. Secondly, I will bring up this here little time bar, which is an arbitrary way of depicting time investment required to accomplish certain tasks. As I discuss the game, the bar will fill up. This time, I'll also be trying to give a time estimate to how long each task in a game will take. By the way, I am a numbnut dickhead, and I will be pushing the very ultimate limits as to what is content. If you disagree with why something is considered content, in big ass quotes, let me know. Won't change the fact that the video is already produced, but I'd like to hear your opinions. So, Final Fantasy 1, the backbone, assbone, big bone of the JRPG genre. Absolutely iconic, well-known series that still gets new games to this day, allegedly. And the first entry is still a very fun experience that draws a lot of inspiration from other contemporary JRPGs as well as Dungeons & Dragons. But just how thin I can stretch 144 kilobytes might be surprising. Let's begin here. You boot up Final Fantasy 1, grab your controller, and play the game without knowledge of what to do. The game, while small, is considerably big for the console it's on. Firstly, there's the quest to recover the 4 crystals of the elements, earth, fire, water, and wind. In a lot of ways, this game has the plot of Captain Planet, just without Captain Planet. Earth is rotting, it stinks around here, so please make the earth less trash to live in, thanks. You take the role of 4 warriors of light. For your characters, you can choose from 6 classes: the fighter, thief, monk, black mage, white mage, and red mage. Each one has their ups and downs, some are better than others, and you can take duplicates. So, you choose a party composition and start in the town of Corneria, and then it's all on you. The game basically tells you to stick an ick word in your ass word. Being an RPG on the NES means that the game can be cryptic and annoying. So this is basically the whole game. You play the whole game, wow, and finally, with all your crystals in hand, you go to the Temple of Fiends, the place where your quest begins to fight the final boss. You stick your S word in their ass word and you beat the game. Well done! This reasonably takes about 25 hours of game time to achieve. So the answer to the question, how long does it take to achieve everything in Final Fantasy 1, is 25 hours? Don't fucking rush me, hang on. It's gonna get horrendously tedious, don't worry. Okay, so now we have a completed file, except we don't. Firstly, you have a few side quests to complete. Tacked onto the side quest notion is finding every item in the game, which means opening every chest in the game world. There's not too many, but you can't claim to have done everything without opening this chest with a fucking potion in it. Go get Excalibur and the Masamune, the 2 best swords in the game, both optional, and then you need to max level your characters, getting them to level 50 each, which can be very tedious and so unnecessary. You don't need to do this in any capacity to beat the final boss, and if you are all 50, you could almost one-shot him. Then you need to find every monster in the bestiary. This takes a good deal of time, especially in the NES version of the game. There are tables which indicate which monster you're going to fight next. On this table, some encounters get a very low occurrence rate. Since this is predeterminable, this is pretty consistently grindable. Do this like, I don't know, X times, and wow, here we go, that's a completed file. Call this entire endeavor 50 hours. So the answer is 50 hours then, you 2-bit fuckbrain, I hear you say. Firstly, foul language never got anyone anywhere, and secondly, we are nowhere near done. Rewind back to the moment you launched the game. You turned on Final Fantasy 1 and you found that there were 6 playable classes. Well, there's an obvious thing we haven't done yet, and that's level up all 6 of these characters to max. So sit down with the 2 you skipped and play the game again. After that's done, you can now finally sit back and relax and realize that you are nowhere near done. Here is a big old revelation, and if there's someone who says that's stupid, that should count in relation to this next point, I have a big fat maybe you're right to give to you. But maybe you're right never made a video, and therefore I transform maybe into sorta.
Beat the game 208 more times.
Quite the undertaking, you might wonder. What the fuck? Well, you picked a 4-person composition, right? Well, since there are 6 character classes and 4 party groups, that means you can have 126 combinations of 4. But hang on, common challenges in Final Fantasy 1 enjoy the idea of beating the game with less than 4 characters. While solo challenges are most popular, it feels wrong to exclude every duo and trio that exists as well, and therefore the grand total of combinations possible is 209. And yes, it's a little bit over the edge to say that's wholly necessary for achieving achieving everything in the game, but you have to beat the game with every composition, right? I mean, it's different. Is anything that different about each playthrough? No, not really, and since I'm being charitable, you don't have to get every character level 50 in those runs, you just have to beat the game again. So with a little simple math, we can expand our range of deranged gameplay from 50 hours to much more. For all 4-person groups, let's say it takes 20 hours on average just to beat the game, so 125 times 20 equals 2,500 hours to do all 4-party groups. The trio combinations, of which there are 56, aren't that hard, but let's say an average of 30 hours per, which equates to 1,680 hours. There are 21 double group compositions, some of which are hard, but all doable. Let's say this takes around 40 hours per group, so that equates to 840 hours. So now the math is 5,020 plus 50, 5,070 hours, not including the solo challenges, and for fun, I have done several of these, and I think they're important to discuss on their own. Beating Final Fantasy I solo challenges is very different. The game is littered with status effects that, while in a group setting, aren't so bad. In solo play, they literally kill you. Sleep is disastrous, paralyze is practically assured death, petrification is assured death, and on it goes. Plus, a class usually makes up for the shortcomings of each other member. The fighter has a lot of health and has great defense, making them a natural leader and tank. The black belt does insane damage, but he lacks anything else to write home about. The white mage has the best defensive magic in the game, but has little to no power, and while having pretty good fortitude, can't use most armor. The black mage has destructive group magic spells, but in very limited supply. Otherwise, they have terrible health and physical damage ability. The red mage has good everything and is broken as fuck. The thief is dog shit. There is the rundown, so here's the ranking on these 6, from best to worst. The red mage can use both white and black magic, equip pretty good mid-level armor and weapons, and has good health growth. So yeah, it's basically a party shoved into one man, and while not being able to cast every useful spell, he learns plenty to become incredibly efficient and safe. For fun, I will point out the worst sticking points for each of these solo runs. The red mage has no sticking point and is unhindered at most times. Fucking bastard. Basically, the best of all worlds, and a solo challenge with him would take an estimated 50 hours. The fighter is the most defensive character, but can't help themselves with any spells. They do get a little bit of white magic, but it basically amounts to a small pittance of healing. Every solo challenge relies on tediously buying every potion type that the stores have, so they have 99 of each. So using items basically lets you heal to full in a dungeon, so you can actually accomplish anything. The fighter also has no real sticking point. There's some dangers always, of course, but you have high hit points and defense and can kill things with minimal effort. Call it 60 hours. The monk has the best damage in the game by so much it's not even close. Dude has 4 arms the size of surfboards, but at level 1 he's a total chump and will die to anything. By the time you are level 15 to 20, you will be able to one-shot almost anything, and then at level 50 you can practically one-shot the final boss. This is the first character you'll have to probably tediously grind with a little bit, but the worst part for monk is the very first boss, Garland. He's going to knock you down many times. The guy hits pretty hard and accurately, and you hit very often. You basically suck balls at this stage, and getting up to like level 6 or 7 in order to beat him means that you're going to be sitting here in Corneria forever. I give the monk 60 hours to solo the game as well though. The black mage has really good power for groups, but he doesn't really start with that. In fact, you need to get several towns into the game in order to get your first multi-hit spell. So while you can overcome Garland with a few magic spells and some luck, you will then get heinously blockaded at the next town of Provoca, since you need to win a fight with 9 pirates in order to get a boat to get your multi-target spell. You will need to grind many levels tediously at this town to get enough HP to survive. You don't have enough spells for every one of these argarg motherfuckers, otherwise known as pirates. Forgive my foul mouth, I'm very sorry, children viewers. I spent so long on these pirates that I'm starting to speak like a fucking, I'm starting to speak like a fucking idiot. The original line had more swearing, but I can't talk, so that's what you're gonna get. So anyway, pray for the best luck ever and stab the droves of pirates over and over until you succeed, and then finally you're off to the great beyond. Rest of the game is basically if you can get lucky and not get one shot because you're a feeble black mage and not really good at taking hits at all. I actually did this challenge on a console, and I can tell you that it took an extremely long time. I'm gonna give this one 90 hours because I can't remember exactly how much time I wasted. Alright, let's cut to the chase. The white mage is weak, but well defended against lots of enemies. You can cast a spell which gives you a great likelihood to dodge, so while you deal upwards of 1 damage, you can simply whack the toes of things for a few hundred years while you never die. So the sticking point is actually the final boss. Forget shit-all, forget even next to shit-all, you don't even deal next to shit-all, and unlike most of the other challenges in the game, this guy doesn't care about your dodge chance since he has a huge repertoire of spells to hit you with. Plus the guy, his name's Chaos, sorry spoilers, uses a max heal spell in his list of spells, so if you can't break his 2000 health barrier before that, you've essentially lost. Good game, 250 hours. The Thief is the weakest and worst class in Final Fantasy I. He has bad stats, bad weapon selection, and mediocre everything else. But Garland isn't actually so bad, and then the pirates are quite easy, and then you get to the boss named Astos, who isn't exactly easy for any of the classes to solo, but for the Thief, it's hell on earth. You cannot access many good items or weapons before Astos, and believe me, you'd really like to have something better than this green party balloon to slap this guy's face with. You will deal 1 damage to him, and he has well over 100 HP. You can critically hit him, but that's pretty unlikely. In fact, it's severely not going to happen unless you level up fiendishly. You might think maybe you can attrition the fight, but if his literally kills you in 1 hit spell doesn't work, rubs your cock. He has a ton of heavy hitting magic and just punches like Mike Tyson. You cannot step to this guy without some levels, and to the tune of level 24 to 26, that should be enough, and considering you have to grind on extremely weak enemies because you don't have any options and barely can survive against trash enemies yourself, it becomes an unbelievable grind. After this point, the whole challenge is not even a problem, but honestly, just for this alone, I'm going to give this a conservative 400 hours. I was grinding in an emulator on 12 times speed, and it took me forever to get past. Okay, adding all those brings us up to 5,980 hours, and there goes the battle. That's it, no more, nuh-uh, we're done. That's literally all you can achieve in Final Fantasy 1? Nope, sorry, not yet. Again, I know, this is like Nutjob Junction, what's my brain function, but the whole point of this series is to make a game as tedious and as horrible as possible. I even already gave us a break on getting max level every single time, you only had to do that 1 time per class, so what nonsense could I suggest for this challenge to get even worse? Well, the game has been remade 4 times. Just broke my elbow. Final Fantasy Origins, Final Fantasy Anniversary, Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls, Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, all different games? Yes, but no. It's still technically Final Fantasy 1. And I thought you wanted to achieve everything in this game, right? So essentially, redo everything we've discussed on every version. Some have balanced the classes or the difficulties, made some things faster with run buttons, but really it's 209 compositions 4 more times. 836 more goes around, and the PSP version added a bunch of stuff too, but for lack of brain power at this point in my exhausted script writing brain, I'm going to simply duplicate the time we took in the original version by 4 and add it to our total. So, to assuredly complete everything in Final Fantasy 1 takes around 29,900 hours. That's almost 3.5 years of time. Oh, so it's quite doable, honestly.